Revenue management idea that needs to die is the notion that we can somehow manage the online travel agencies to our advantage and become less dependent upon them. And you have to look at the landscape of hotel distribution to understand that third parties are definitely the glass half full in this scenario. The ability to market yourself through agencies, make yourself available to customers who perhaps had no idea that your particular hotel brand was available in that market is really a dream come true. And if there's a cost that's associated with that, in my opinion, it's a cost worth paying.
The revenue management industry needs to move past the thought that OTAs are going away. And we need to find a way to work with them in ways that are most profitable for our individual hotels based on the day of week and time of year.
Well, I think as an industry we need to get away from the notion that we need to be partners with every OTA out there. Some are not, and so really gravitating to the ones that fit your objectives and goals will be important.
Cease and desist on viewing OTAs as the enemy. They have their time, they have their place. There is a cost to them, just like there is any other acquisition of any other customer.
So the revenue management idea that needs to die is the thought that the OTAs are going to go away.
In our industry, revenue management really needs to morph. We need to have a few concepts reborn. One of those is pricing, which really has to take a more holistic view of the total guest value and the cost of acquisition and profitability for that customer. The second thing that our industry needs to relook at is RevPAR index as a metric of success. Too many different factors outside of the control of a hotel are at play in a revenue per available room index. And a good director of revenue is going to be able to know when a competitor is going under renovation, and that may take their index artificially high one year and adversely impact it the next year, making it artificially low. That is entirely too flexible of a metric that will allow for a determination of success.
The idea that needs to die that's top on my list is RevPAR, which is a little bit controversial since it is the metric for the industry, but it treats all revenue the same, and as distribution costs come into the picture more and more, we've got to really figure out what revenue is the best revenue for the hotel, the most profitable.
I think the one idea in revenue management that needs to die, and it should have died a long time ago, but still hasn't, is that a 100 RevPAR index means fair share. I still see that in the industry and within my own company when I'm talking with folks, and they say, oh, Neil, my RevPAR index is down, but I'm still getting my fair share. Fair share is a nice idea, but it doesn't necessarily work when you don't have perfect competitors. There's plenty of times where you pick the competitors to be in your comp set that are the closest to you as possible, but many times that isn't competitors that mean that they're exactly on the average of what you should be capturing. So many times, fair share could be a RevPAR index of 110 or 115 or 120, depending on who's in your comp set.
So one idea that's become prevalent in our industry that I think is just self-inflicted wounds is the same-day discounting that we do through these various channels. We've always thought of same-day reservations as being our highest demand and typically be our highest price, and somehow, for some reason now, we're training people to look for discounts for those types of reservations. So, in my opinion, that's the worst.
As an industry, I really believe that we need to step away from the idea that revenue management can't be done remotely. It's so important to find the quality individual. It's important to really invest in that information and experience that the person has so that we can move forward with having the very best experience in the position. That's not to say that positions can't be groomed within an organization to come up from a sales position into revenue management, but the idea that the person needs to be seated at the hotel specifically really is an antiquated decision. We lose a lot of great people if we can't be able to embrace the idea that this job can be done from wherever.
Sorry, I'm doing my technology stuff at the same time, so just a moment. We better stop this before it plays the next thing.
Hold on to your hats, folks.
Sorry. We were going to go over and play AC/DC Thunderstruck just to get y'all moved, but that actually was just as good. Okay. All right, sorry. This is the 360 camera that we're broadcasting Facebook Live privately, meaning nobody else is seeing it right now. It's actually for recording for this. Back there on the little stem, that little dinky black thing on the top of the stem is recording this session live as well. And I can control it from here as to who zooms into what and so forth and what have you. And that will be available for you all after this. I'll give you a link at the end of the presentation that you can go to for the deck in its entirety. I recorded a webinar version of this where I didn't follow tangents and rabbit holes, and kind of went through every slide as the slides were intended to it. In my pleasure of speaking with some today, I've changed some of the slides, which I drive my cohorts crazy on, because it changes hopefully every time we do this. What I would like to do, we'll start stepping through actually we're going to skip all of this because this is an unnecessary thing, but I would like to bring up this. And we have to consider that you hear a lot about revenue management in this silo or in this profession, and marketing in this profession over here. And you may, and I hope I'm not the first person to mention this, that there's a need for a relationship, a combining of the two to build, and that actually the entity of revenue management as it is now, and the entity of marketing as it is now, will they themselves not be the same as they are. That it is a blending, a merging of the two. And what I hope out of our discussions today isn't just to discuss it as, oh, this is wonderful, that we need to think like this, and kumbaya, let's hold hands, let's marketing and revenue management talk together. I would like to show the practicality of it. I'd like to show how it can work, and what data you would actually be talking about, and what methodologies would you be discussing through to better collaborate with your current marketing team, with your current revenue management team, as to exactly what you should be doing for those things to happen, okay? So that's the goal and the purpose of this. Now, I'm going to steal something that I feel good in stealing because I actually told Jane this out of ideas. I say that revenue management, and pardon me while I just hit the play just to give you the graphics of this because I actually stole it from Ideas website. Revenue management is a lot like driving a car with a rear view mirror only. You're always looking at where you've been, you've always looked at where you've seen what around you, but you're not looking forward. You're only seeing the current demands, the historical demands, the occupancies, the ADRs, the data that you use to project forward. And I say marketing is the part that looks forward. Because marketing is about the user behavior. It's about the people that are in that funnel, and I hate the term funnel because it's a two-dimensional perspective on a three-dimensional concept. But just for simplicity, say a whole lot of people come down to the few people that do business with us. So marketing is about engagement with people and how they engage with what it is that you represent for yourselves. And that is not based on just your occupancy, ADR, length of stay, and math like that, but rather that math in combination with other math and other behavioral things. Now there is a video that I put in that I'm not going to hit for this one. This is called The Right Moment. And what I would like to do instead of this video is drag you back to the YouTube and bring you to a video about China. And where are we here? Oh, sorry, I have to actually go back to this one because I shut it off when we were done, so now I have to reopen it. And I did this because of your conversation.
Thanks.
Well,
sorry, everybody.
No, because what I want you to see is something that explains the moment that we're talking about, okay, better than what I did with the original video. So pardon me while I go through the process of going back to putting it back in.
We screwed you up. You had it there.
It's okay. I'm never on track with most of the stuff anyway. By the way, here, we go. And let's do this. We'll let it run. I'm actually giving you 5 minutes of time for this one.
If you are sitting in the United States or Europe right now, you've probably never used a Chinese app. But the reality is, if you want to know how the internet will develop, China, the land once known for its cheap rip-offs, has actually become a guide to the future. You know, the internet is the internet, but for China, the internet is more like an intranet. It's largely walled off from the Western world by this incredibly complex system of filters and blocks that we call the Great Firewall. And basically, the Great Firewall blocks any foreign site the Communist Party doesn't think it can control. So that means there is no Facebook, no Twitter, no Google. Instead, what filled the internet vacuum was a generation of Chinese copycats that have grown into huge companies. So for Google, you had Baidu. For YouTube, you had Youku. For Twitter, you had Sina Weibo. The list goes on and on. It's almost as if the Chinese internet is a lagoon as an aside to the greater ocean of the internet. And in that lagoon, there are these swamp monster apps that bear some resemblance to the creatures in the ocean, but are mutated in some ways because they evolved in a different kind of environment. But things have started to shift in the sense that before, no one outside of the lagoon really cared about the swamp monsters. But now, all of a sudden, some of the features they've developed are so amazing that Western apps are trying to copy them. And the greatest example of this is WeChat. WeChat is an example of, for lack of a better word, a super app. It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and Uber. It's your Amazon, Instagram, Venmo, and Tinder. But it's other things we don't even have apps for. There are hospitals that have built out whole appointment booking systems. There are investment services. There are even heat maps that show how crowded a place is, be it your favorite shopping mall or a popular tourist site. The list of services goes on basically forever. But it's not the variety of things you can do on WeChat that makes it so powerful. It's the fact that they're all in one app. So why does that matter? Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big bag. Your dog gets cleaned and he looks great. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag the dog cleaning business. You haven't left the app. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle clean. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left the app. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the wall. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone, and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant, have left the app. At the restaurant, there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products that get the push of the social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people. Sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about, who you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. It's the combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal, all in one place. The problem is, All of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. So if you're not in China, why does this matter? It matters because we're starting to see a number of Western tech companies attempt to replicate super apps like WeChat. For the companies, it's incredibly powerful, and for you and me, it's convenient and even transformative technology. But of course, it could also be problematic. Concentrating so much data in so few hands could lay the groundwork for an Orwellian world where companies and governments can track every single movement you make.
I thought I explained it better than me trying to show a minority report for you. Okay. Why I want to use that starting point is because we deal with micro moments. That's Google's phrase, not mine. And micro moments have nothing to do with our traditional marketing. Micro moments are about being in a place at the right time. The micro moment. Google has a term for it called ZMOT. I didn't even know what it was at one time until I was at a conference and the lead speaker was talking about ZMOT. Zero moment of transaction or transition, whatever you want to refer to it. It's almost a cult-like following as to people trying to determine what this is because it's all behavioral based. And this is trying to understand where you need to be at the time the person that you're trying to have purchase something from you makes that choice, that decision. Now we equate that to making sure there's a booking button or reserve now or find more or learn more. When in fact it's a lot about being in a certain location at a certain time, proximity-based, content-based, and we're going to go through a little bit of the processes and methodologies of a little bit of how this works. But the idea is, if I have a flat tire, I wasn't looking for tires before that, until I had a flat tire, now I need a tire repair, maybe a replacement. If my refrigerator dies, I wasn't looking for a new refrigerator beforehand, but now I'm looking for one or a repair replacement. Just as much as if you were buying a car, you don't listen to used car sales. That's white noise, until all of a sudden you're going to be buying a car, now you listen to car sales. Well, that money being spent is in the traditional terms we used to say, 50% of my marketing, I know what it is successful, I just don't know what 50% of it is. Well, we have now the tools and capabilities. One of the great examples about the WeChat conversation is that we as marketers currently in the United States have not near that level, but pretty good amount of information that's knowledgeable about our user experiences that we're simply not using, to the gentleman's point that does data. It's learning how to use and interpret the data as to whether it's usable or unusable. That's the key element to this process. This data is already presently where we'll give some examples of that as we go forward. Okay. We are in an amazing time, barring unfortunate circumstances like today, where we're in the industry of choice. This is a statement that was made by the American Express Survey Commission. You can read it faster than I can read it to you. But fundamentally, our culture has shifted from the picket white fence small house in suburbia to experience-based driven living. People want to experience rather than purchase. People want to feel rather than have, to the point that they feel that it is the number one reason for their existence. Now, we're not saying globally, but I'm sure that there's an intrinsic value to that as well. But it does mean that if any industry to be in, ours is an amazing industry. Now, we can whittle away that against Airbnbs, inventories, and vacation travels, and people maybe exponentially traveling to different destinations with VR and AR and never really physically traveling. There's lots of variables to that, but to feel that we're in an industry that people would desire the most means that we have the greatest opportunity for growth. I want to give you an idea, sense of the data and awareness and knowledge, and this is usually contra to saying, please get off your laptops, don't use your phone during a presentation, but if those who have iPhones, I should put an Android up sometime, but iPhones, take your iPhone out. Again, I don't want to read this to you, and if you don't have an iPhone, but you're near someone with an iPhone, just take a quick peek. If you haven't done so,
Turns up?
No. No swipe right today. All right, please follow the directions up. Go to your settings on your iPhone, and then follow the direction down. There is a lot of scrolling involved in a couple of the pages, so please take the time to scroll all the way down. So go to your settings, select the privacy function, then location services, then scroll all the way down to system services. Oh, it's amazing the amount of stuff in it. But whoever gets there first, please raise your hand because I have a question to ask you. Yes? What do you say?
Well, I guess I must turn mine off.
Oh, good. Actually, there's a good and bad to that, but thank you, that's fine. And that, you won't see what I would hope you were to see, but I'm glad that you did turn off your privacy settings for that.
Does this work for Android too?
It does, but not the same directions. I think there's very little bit to it. Anybody else have it where they haven't turned on the privacy? Jen?
I got a new phone and I went, oh my gosh, I need to do this. There's free to
You've seen me say this before. What do you see?
That I visited 35 locations in Canada and United States.
You see the times that you spent there and that stuff yet?
Yep.
Blow it up a little bit?
Oh my gosh, yep.
That's the simple data that your phone collects. I know you're smiling because you know this already.
For the Android, you can do it through Maps.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm glad you did, because I should just I should split the screen. I'm partial to iPhone because I live in the Apple ecosystem, so but thank you.
Maps gives you the pictures you took in those places.
So, take off your revenue management hats for just a moment and consider what the value proposition of this data is.
Can we turn it off?
Yes, actually. And she goes out during your privacy said, now there's a cost to that because a lot of your app functions that need your location information would then not have it to use it. And you'd have to then give it permissions to do. So unless you're in places that you don't want people to know it is. But yes, to this end though, the data the data is there. Now Apple says that they're not doing anything bad with it, but I guarantee they are doing something with it, as does Google, as does any other application that uses location-based services. And for those of you who do use a lot of apps on your phone, you know there is a tremendous amount of location-based service apps out there that require, and you probably hit the OK several times, say it's okay to go to your location, sure. But what they don't say is that what aspect of that information they're actually using. Now, add a little bit of the Internet of Things in conversation. Things are getting smart at home. We just talked about Alexa. Okay? Well, refrigerators are getting smart. You can see what's in your refrigerator. You can actually have your Amazon talk to your refrigerator, and your refrigerator can tell you when you're running out of something, and you can order it, and all this other fun stuff. What's the value of that data? What do you think the value of having the fact that I know that when I go home, my Nest thermostat turns down a few degrees because I like it cooler? How could I use that? Well, if I had the data, I would know when that person's home or not. So I now have their patterns. Now I have this location information, and I know where they go. Now, if I'm in proximity marketing, and I'll tailor this to one of our participants today, in event-driven marketing, then I know if they're passing through a potential proximity of something that I would want them to know about. And that's proximity marketing, and I have an example of it from a marketing perspective, a sales perspective, that will be helpful to explain a little bit more detail to it. So all this data is a matter of interpretation, connect the dots scenarios. How does this go together? So let's bring it back a little bit more towards revenue management. This is revenue management's world. This is actually all of our hotel worlds. It's not meant to be read, it's meant to be seen. This is a wireframe description of all your marketing segmentations according to, well, I think I stole from Marriott. I think this is Marriott from about 5 years ago. Yeah, well, I mean, actually, I put it in my format, but I stole all their terms. This is the segmentation. You have your transient, your group. Sound right? Okay? These are the group segmentations. These are transient segmentations. There's your SMRF. Now you have your market channels, your GTS services. This is how we see the world. But when was the last time somebody came to your front desk and said, hi, I'm your SMRF business? Unless they're small and blue, probably not. But we categorize them like this. Why do we categorize people like that? What would be the basic human nature associated with categorization, or should I say stereotyping?
The segmentation is for ease of marketing.
Because if I can make you similar, I only have to talk to one person, or maybe 4 people turn into 1, or 10 turn into 2. So I'm able to go over and quantify similarities of people. We've done it by source of business. Why? Because we had data on that. We knew where they came from by the type of business they were reflecting. So we based our marketing on that. Problem is, the marketing's not talking to the individual. I'm just telling you I'm selling used cars. Until you need it, you're not listening. But I'm spending a lot of money to see if I can just be in as many people's faces as I can about it. This is how we see the world. That's our time cycle. Acquire people, just before arriving, they're with us, and they're not. That simplicity of engagement, it would be bad to say that if you were married, you try to put that same quantifier into your relationship with your husband or wife, because that isn't your life. That's a process of a timeline, okay? So we have to rethink how revenue management and marketing go together. What can we do better together that doesn't use that old terminology, even though categorically it is correct? There is a pre-step, there is an acquisition, but we don't define the process by the segmentation it is, or rather how we can influence what that segmentation represents to us. So you have all these things. Again, I don't want to read faster than you can, or say rather faster than you can read. all these things that we can begin to collaborate on. You see how it transitions a lot from revenue management over to the marketing side. But there's crossovers to that. There's usabilities between forecasting and knowledge of data. Let me show you what I mean. This is an exaggerated, totally artificial timeline. From here forward is revenue management in simplistic forms. You have your prime booking window, you have your demand cycles, you have your book date, you have your length of stay. It's fundamental mathematics stuff. We have dates, times, locations, months, durations, all that's there. The part that isn't known by revenue manager is this part here, which is the research period. So to go back to the first analogy of trying to drive a car with the rearview mirror only, you're aware of these things historically, but you're not aware of them progressively up to the actual time, dates, and stays. How many times have we been fooled, aka forecast accuracy, where we've been off because we anticipated, but unfortunately some things happen that change our forecast. So this area here is the world of the marketing, or good research, or good data usage. And combining that data with all the other data that revenue management knows, now you get a full spectrum picture of it. Okay. I usually ask if people do Facebook advertising or not. Knowing that I'm speaking to most revenue managers, people tend not to be in that space very often. So let me describe a little bit of these two terms. Facebook is all that knowledge that we talked about, all the knowledge that you saw that we have for most of the degree, exists in the world of Facebook. Now, you may think, well, I don't tell Facebook everything. I may shut off my location services. I may not tell them my accurate age or what school I went to or where my address is that I live or whatever have you. But of all the things that Facebook tracks, if you're working in their ecosystem, who you like, what they share, what you comment on, all that dialogue creates a digital avatar of you. Whether you're accurate with yours or not, eventually the accuracy improves from Facebook's side. Custom audiences is a way of you taking data that you have in your operation and giving it to Facebook and saying, hey Facebook, I have this list of email addresses. Who do you recognize? So say you give 1,000 email addresses to Facebook. Now what first thing Facebook does is it anonymizes them. You don't know individually who those people are when they come back. They've turned into an avatar. It's not their individual email related to the data of the demographics. As it is, they are now represented by the demographics that they are, that Facebook knows about. Okay? And so it creates an audience within Facebook that's of your previous guests or previous event that you had that you garnered emails from. Now, all that data that Facebook knows about you is usable to filter messaging to them. Now, I'm not saying messenger yet. I'm saying messaging to them, advertising to them. 4 years ago, I used to make a statement, and this is not to be biased in anything. I said I could find a one-armed Hindu in Amish country looking for Tex-Mex. And I would just go on Facebook Power Editor, and I would put all those filters in, and I would have an audience of people that I could go over and send an ad to that qualified all of those statements. I can now add to that list that has two daughters, one that goes to Penn State University, been 3 years in their house, worth $1 million, owns a BMW, and their wife drives a Mercedes. And I will still have an audience. Oh, and that lives in Philadelphia. And I can actually narrow down that type of data. So this is the data that you have that you don't use, and that is your front desk teams. And I think about talking to you about front desk. You see who comes to your front desk. You see the demographic shifts from business cycles. You see them come in for different events. All that awareness of how we, quote, stereotype people, oh, that person is this or that person is that, all that demographic information about them is usable to define them, to target them. I had asked someone earlier if they were still doing blitzes. I think I asked Jennifer here, actually. In any hotels, are you still doing any sort of sales blitzes or things like that? Mm-hmm. Okay. A suggestion, because I used to say, don't do it. Suggestion. Anybody that's in the Facebook ecosystem tends to follow their company on Facebook, which means it's a filterable means of talking to them. So rather than try to get past the gatekeepers and the receptionists with bags of cookies and non-solicit signs and so forth, instead just go to Facebook and say, okay, go do traditional marketing. What's my top 10 employers in marketing? Do I have L&R rates with them? Well, why don't I go over and offer their staff whatever opportunity I want to give them? And then now all of a sudden the ads off to the side. Hey, employees of XYZ, here's your deal. Don't have to go for a little pins and that no more. Doesn't mean you shouldn't one-to-one contact. This isn't a replacement of engagement. Sales is still a fundamentally critical engagement process. It's a personalization of the relationship. But this gives you such a filtering capability to find out whom you're talking to. That's just one example of it. So that's custom audience. Lookalike audiences is even better. I don't know for those back well enough that American Express used to offer what was called lookalike audiences. For almost $50,000, depending on the size of the database, they would say, hey, everybody that uses the American Express card at your hotel, we'll send them whatever email offer you want to give them. We're not going to give you the list, but we'll send them your offer. Just give us $50,000. Facebook does it for free. Well, you're paying for the advertising, but it's free to generate the list. And here's the scary part. So you take your custom audience that you've given Facebook and say, hey, Facebook, out of everybody in the United States, who's within 99% exactly the same? All that demographic data, actually 55,000 points in counting demographic data. Sometimes Google will say, hey, or FMC will say, hey, I can only get within 4% or 5%, but just imagine you go from a 1,000-person list to a 2 million list. Now, these are people that are almost the same as the people that have already enjoyed your hotel, but they don't know about your hotel. All of their demographic information is now usable by you to market to them. I'm going to give some examples of that. So, we'll skip the first one only because it's not directly relevant. I do speak about it in the webinar, so it's fine, but you can see, right here, every turn. By the way, key element to that was people that like BMWs. Don't know why. This is what I like to talk about. Sales case example. And I use this one because it was successful. 2 weeks out, hotel loses 62% of its occupancy from a group drop. It was unfortunate tragedy that created the drop. They didn't want it to repeat group year after year. They weren't going to exercise an attrition clause to them. They're just going to lose 62% occupancy and hope they come back next year, which they committed to anyway. You still have this hole. So let me ask you, revenue managers, what options do I have? You're sitting 2 weeks out with a 62% gap in the occupancy Friday, Saturday night. What are your choices? Oh, come on now. This is definitely in your wheelhouse. What are your choices?
Open everything and anything.
That's right.
You got on the phone with James and Booking.com. I get on the phone with all my OTAs.
OTA, hey, help
What can we do to get better placement? I need help. Da, 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 da. I'm going. And
you're going to make enemies of everybody in your market set because you're dropping rate down to the basement. You're going to piss a bunch of people off. You're going to get money back on the table because people that have already gone through what's and then they're going to drop and you go into that rate, right? That's pretty much, hey, 2 weeks out, we got to take grin and bear it. Hope there's some residual market demand we haven't got yet, and some ability to go over and get some back that we lost, right?
I got to capture a much higher percentage of the demand that's laying out there.
Right. What we did was create custom audiences. Took the arrivals list already on the books, sent it to Facebook, said, hey, can you give us a custom audience list? Took everybody that was in-house same time last year. Why? Well, they came for a reason last year. Maybe they have the same reason this year. We just don't know yet. Took that list. Took another one and said, everybody within 150 miles, because we have zip codes in the folio, we made a custom audience out of them. Took that list and sent it to Facebook. Put all three of them together, but made the one the people that were already on the books negative. Meaning, what we were about to do, they're not going to see. We don't want to put money back on the table. Sent out the group rate offer. This is why it's on the presentation. It's sold out. We get all of it back. The group rate was good. We targeted people most interested in it that could take advantage of it, because here's the difference between advertising a used car on TV in general. If I had a guest that came from California, and I'm giving them a 2-week opportunity, we're already past the minimum 21-day flight windows that most people use and travel, they're not going to take advantage no matter how good the offer was. So I worry about that. Same goes to 150 miles, 2.5-hour drive, 3-hour drive, gets in that fuzzy zone of it's not too far but far enough. Might be a good reason to come into town. So, example of that. Another couple examples of stealing market share. So, I got to Speaker Focus right years ago, and I was working for a company that I lived in Florida, but I had an 8 o'clock presentation, and I thought maybe I should stay at the hotel. That way I don't have to worry about being into the traffic down there. So I called up, this is at the Diplomat in Hollywood, and it was like $4.99 a night. I was like, yeah, the company's not going to pay for that. But the company I was with had a hotel just up the road, the Marriott up the road. So I called them and said, oh, please tell me you're not sold out, because we can't displace revenue, all these other rules. And they're like, what are you sold out? Well, the conference down the road, where it's, I don't know, 60-some-odd%. I'm like, wait a minute, they're racking, what's your rack rate now? About $3.99. What are you selling at? $160 something. Like, so even if we offer a rack, we're $100 less than their best rate right now. Are you kidding me? So I made this ad. I said, hey, Focusrite. If you're running out of service, $100 less, 5 minutes up the beach from the conference. Okay? Focused it on everybody that liked Focusrite. Focused on Focusrite. And everybody that was following their main sponsorships. Why? Because people work for the companies that are sponsored. They're usually the ones that are attending. They're the ones that are engaged. They got to save a dime. So we set it up. Well, they sold out for the 7 days during the total course of it. Got a few extra $1,000 or for 1,000 people following them. Plus, every year we needed to do it, it was like hit the big red button. Boom, they came back. Because we're able to target the people that were most interested in the message. Just not saying, to general populace, saying I got 10% off on November 1st to 15th means nothing. Saying I have this for you who are interested in this means everything. This one's more to proximity marketing for you. So I had a restaurant, recently refurbed, several $1 million refurb, on the beach, established for over 30 plus years. Been known, been used, people adored it. Was losing business on a Friday night. Well, one of the reasons was it was in a high density, small market, 71 other restaurants you could walk to, maybe something like 6th Street. In that process, there was newer, shinier places to go. So they weren't getting the same Friday night audience as they were before. So this is old school marketing with new technology. I used to own restaurants. I needed a Friday night crowd, hence the ladies' night, 2 for 1s, girls drink free. You get the single young females into the bar, the single guys follow. It's kind of the way things work. So what we did was we did a proximity advertisement for them in a 5-mile radius. Any female that indicated they were 24 to 34, liked live music, and they were single, trying to make any problems at home, would see in the post. And considering that there was 71 restaurants locally around them, okay, valet parking was the key element to that. Once you park, that's where it's there, you went everywhere. Okay, we had 150 parking spots in the restaurant. So we posted this up at 5 o'clock, took it down 5:45. Why? Parking was full. We were full of single 23 to 34 females liking live music. Guys followed. Thinking in mind too, back in the old days, when you owned a restaurant, you didn't have cell phones. So when guys and girls and groups got together and said they're going to meet somewhere, you had to wait for everybody to show up before you leave. Because if you left before the last guy showed up or the girl showed up, then they didn't know where you went. Now, somebody could walk in, Snapchat, walk back out, and you never know why you lost 50 people. Use it for your benefit. They walk in and go, dang, come in, quick, they're all here, you know, and they come in and they stay. We tried to do it again at night, ended up just being able to get free drinks for it because nobody left the parking lot. But we didn't lose our audience either. Because nobody wanted to leave where they actually, I mean, there's other places to go, but what we had is what they wanted. So without wow, liking it, we wouldn't put it in a bottle. Anytime we wanted to do this, we were amazed that we could keep beating our competitors and have them walk out of another bar into ours because we started offering people by their location, come on down, we'll buy you a free drink, come join us. Weird thing, because you can focus these kind of messages now. Okay. Okay. A little bit on the tech geeky side. This, if you haven't ever seen one of these before, is attribution streams. Google taketh away the keywords, which was the way we defined how we would get in front of people, for those of you familiar with it, and it gave us attribution streams, which meant to say, based on the conversions created through your website, your direct channel, which is what I'm referring to now, this is the steps and processes that they took to get to you. They went to your social site, they went to your organic page, they referred to, they went to your paid ad. Well, here's the nice part of all this. All of those things, we have methodologies in tracking now, data that we can use. What website page did they go to? What ad did they respond to? What social post did they connect to? So now it's about optimizing these attribution strings to collectively improve the conversion values as they get laid out. Love to give more examples. Actually, the webinar gives a couple of really good examples of this, but I got way too many slides to hit, so we're going to sneak by it all. Now, this goes to a conversation we had about direct channel, third-party contributions. The big moniker right now is direct channel, direct channel, direct channel. First off, don't bash OTAs. We've had this conversation. This is not from any sponsorships or anything. OTAs are a great partner in the context of what they're to be used for. They're there to really generate first-level engagement for you. They are in stratas of cost and expenses that you can't do, no matter how big of a company, even Marriott, cannot spend at the level that OTAs spend. By the same token, shame on you if you have to rely on them for second generation business, meaning that they stayed with you, but you didn't reacquire them direct channel or alternate channel. And that blend, that percentage, should flex according to your business cycles, to the methodology of the events that are driving the business interest, but they should never be, oh, those are the bad guys. No, they contribute legitimately at places you can't. But if you surrender what you should have done to them, then there's the problem. Usually it's people say. So these third-party trackings create issues where they're meant to be helpful in your direct channel, but what they end up doing is hijacking your direct channel and diluting its conversion value in compensation to giving them credit for having driven it. It's a little bit like if somebody pulled out your front door here, was taking out their suitcases, looked very much like they're coming in to check in, and a third party wants to go, hey, you coming into this hotel? Yeah, great. Look, I'll check you in. That's what they're doing to you. They're not improving the conversion of your site. Not always. But they are taking away from the value of the conversion of your site by how they mechanically infuse themselves into the methodology of that attribution stream. Because they stop the session that's in your website and they take credit for it. But they don't stop the sessions that just leave your website that they don't account for when it comes to how successful they are compared to what you're doing, which means you account for all the traffic into your website. Just little technicalities. I throw it in there because it's turned into a big issue for me. So, I took a slide share of this website just to show you how much we don't know. There is 25 tracking items on the website for this hotel. And I don't think Jennifer's with us to ask you. Oh, yeah. Oh, darn, they look down. Sorry. Did you know all these?
No.
Well, first, brand always infuses their own, okay? But there's something here, I don't have any clue where they came from. Most of them I understand, but most of these I'm like, what? You know, pixels and so forth and so on, those ones I understand, but there's so many other tracking options that are in there because of whom you have sharing images with, posts with, there's ways to creep in tracking. All of that slows down your site. Anybody know the recent stat from Google as to how much percentage of traffic is coming from mobile versus not mobile?
82% mobile, I think.
Internet is mobile. The other stuff is the other stuff. It's not mobile. It's not internet anymore. Internet is mobile. That's engagement. All of that. You can't answer this one, in case you know. What's the slowest your website should be load time? And I know I'm asking every manager this. What do you think it would be? Just how personal patience. What is your personal patience? 1 second. Getting close. 7 seconds is it. After 7 seconds, Bonnie made the comment about your revenue generation loss by review scores. Same thing with speed. I mean, you start carving off 20% worth of conversions every millisecond after 7. And this stuff loads at the 14 and 16 second range.
Scary thing. So I work with Google really heavily in Ireland, and their scary stat is if your website doesn't load in under 5.8 seconds, you lose 32% of your So, and then that then works.
And this starts tearing things down. I want to show this only because I kept it in there for a reason. Don't discount all the individual things you do. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, this post about Halloween. And then the Halloween event goes away and say, hey, we only got so much dollars off of that. If you have, this is one of the biggest things that an audit does for you, is it tells you to set the configure your tracking on your website correctly. So here was a post in Halloween on Facebook. Anytime you do anything, and I know brand hotels have a limitation of this capacity, anytime you can do something on social, make sure there's an organic page, meaning a page on your website that the content is more relevant and in-depth. You don't want your post on Facebook to be the only content that you're sharing. It should point to an action item on your website. So here's the traffic generated to the page that was made for this event on Facebook. This is over the course of a year. So the post happened on Halloween. Now Google has a great tracking capability which will tell you the dollar value that the page represents to your overall revenue of your website. Just how much did it help your website? Over the course of that year, one Halloween thing, one Halloween post, generated a couple of $1,000s in bookings and so forth. The overall length of value that this represented was over $20,000 because it was used, it was indexed, and then it was used for other things. It was referred to other things. Maybe you need to discover. Remember, when you search online, it's not a straight line. It's a ball. It's a squirrel. There you are. You start one thing and you end up finding figuring why you got on Amazon and bought that thing. All right, cool stuff. So, anybody use Tableau? Awesome tool. And it's not the only tool. There's just an example of this is what I use for this one. So, I say you can track everything in Google. You can track everything in Google on your website, including the dates that people are using on your website to look for times they want to stay. And you know where they were from when they were looking for that information. So what I did was I took that data together and said, okay, if I know where you were looking from, and I know the dates that you're looking for, then I can generate lead times based on geographic reference. So we're going to blend this a little with revenue management, feeder markets. So here, minus the lines, is the lead times. I put a slider over here. So I would slide, say I need business for the second week of March. So I'd slide the slider over to the second week of March. And it would show the lead times on the demographics that were looking for those dates. How am I following?
Yeah, 20 left.
Yeah, I'm not getting almost, that's good. It's the best timetable I've had so far. All right, with that in mind, knowing the lead times, from a marketer's point of view, I would know when to present product to that market. Rather than having to advertise to all of the continental United States, I could focus to certain demographic areas. I can't do that alone. Revenue management needs to tell me if are they even valuable. Is it just out of interest because there's an event that is connected to Philadelphia that people from Philadelphia want to come to? Or is it really legitimate demand from that market? That's when your historical data is pulled in. That's when you're saying, oh, that's a feeder market for us at this time of year. And then I go and say, well, what's the rate assistance for that market for that time of year? Well, it's $160. Well, we're looking for $180 this year. Okay, then we ask the more revenue management question. How much of that business do you want before you turn it off? Okay, I want X number of dollars. Okay, so let's math this out. This tableau went over and said, give me the top 20 markets of 80% of my business. What are the top 20 markets? And it gave me 20, but it was based on revenue generation. In it is also ADR, length of stay, average cost. So I look and say, well, you know what? If you need $180 ADR, this market isn't it, but this market is. And this is the length of stay in the ADR. And this is the channels that were used to generate that business. Because we have historical data too. So now I'm able to say, in order for us to generate $50,000 of revenue from this market on paid ads, because that's the percentage we're looking at, 26% of that for paid ads, at the average cost per click of $1.25, and the click-through rate is at 3.5, then we're going to have to spend $1,126.13 to get $55,000 of business. What we just did was flip the revenue forecasting model. Marketing was telling you where we could get your business because the math thing goes backwards. If it's $50,000, like let's say 2.5 days, ADR $180, that's how many room nights we get. That's my forecast. And none of it was used with occupancy and ADR starting, but it ended. It's a blend. One isn't better than the other. The togetherness is what makes it better. Marketing can do this, but it doesn't know what it's doing. Revenue can do this, but it doesn't know why it's doing it. Put the two together. So, what do I have here? Oh, this is my script of trash. This is a worksheet I use, just to give you a sense of what we just talked about. So, to explain the segment I took out to protect the innocent, I went over and took, and this was for budgeting this year for one of my clients. What's total transient revenue? Ta-da! Okay, I don't want group because group is affected differently. So I get a transient revenue amount. What's my direct channel contribution? Goals, let's just round it up. I want either 10%, 9%, or 8%. And that's what these numbers represent. That's 10% of the total transient revenue for the month of January. Give you a sense of the bars you can see on the top. Now, what are my channels of contribution for direct channel? PPC, travel ads, third-party meta search, retargeting, social. What's the percentage contribution of each of those? Okay? And these are all variables because you're mapping this stuff out. 70% is to PPC, 10% travel ads, 10% third-party, and you have historicals with that. So then, what's my ratio of return by month? Because I have historical data. Well, PPC is usually a 7-1 return in January, and it's supposed to be contributing 70%. So if I spend this much, it'll make that much money. And if I do it for all of them, that number magically matches my percentage contribution I'm targeting for to the forecasted revenue that I'm targeting in my revenue strategies. And then going back a slide, if you go back to the segmentation, how much did it cost in what segment and so forth, you're able to create a budget, a marketing budget that should look something like that. With all your different segmentations of where you're spending your money, based on what you calculated, by category where it's supposed to be spent, by month that it's supposed to be spending. And now you've constructed your marketing plan to actually be targeted to your revenue plan. That's a combination that doesn't always happen. Most of the time, marketing is left with, well, you have 4 to 7% of our total gross income to play with, and you have to share between your operation expenses and your traditional marketing media and these other percentages and so forth. You can go to a C-level conversation, this is what I use it for, and go, look, you want how much money? Great. So if that is how much money you want, and you want a 10% contribution, this is our historicals, these are our targets, this is how much money I need. Well, I can't give you that much, then you're not going to get that much. Where else are you going to spend it? Oh, we'll put it in traditional. Good. Do you have the return value to calculate that? There are times it is, but most of the time this at least gives you a working model that you can argue with, rather than just arbitrarily creating a financial number. So, example of free tools to use for fun stuff. Google has, as soon as I say it, I've said the name on fire. I put the link's actually in there. Sorry. You can create a heat map. This is the example of taking all the historical zip codes associated with the revenue that was generated for this particular property and put them on a heat map. If this is static, if we could zoom down, we could go right down to a zip code and show the amount of money that a zip code generated for that hotel, that resort, over the course of the year of the data that we used. What we did with it, rather than pretty colors, was we put it in a scattergram, a 4-quadrant chart. It was an affluent resort, so we knew you had to have an income level. So that was our predication, saying, look, the higher the income, the more opportunity for us to sell to you. So we took the historical data, the zip codes, and put it in a scattergram. Total revenue generated by zip code, by average median income of that zip code, which, by the way, we have free on the statistics, the census. So we put a quadrant. Everything over here and up meant that it was generating great revenue, and it had a higher propensity to generate revenue for us. Everybody down here had the income, but didn't have the revenue generation for us. They forgot about us. So we just sent snail mail to them. Hey, remember us? No special offers, no, just hey, it's time you came back. 30% growth in 30 days. Just by reminding them that they already did business with us. Already reminding them, and then even if they themselves individually weren't, they shared with those within their neighborhood, because people tend to be in clusters of people with similarities. You know, rich neighborhoods, Jupiter Island, so forth and so on. So they shared the data with their friends, saying, oh, look, we're there, you should be able to. Data is everywhere. Put this one in for you again. This is raw data from your booking engine, your OTAs. You know that they give you fake emails, right? So that you can track them, but you can't do anything with them. There's a great campaign, you should always convert those, but that's another story. Anyway, so in here we have confirmation numbers, fake emails, summary of real emails, dates acquired, dates of stay, the department they're in, who you got it from, booking.com or not. This would look like useless data, but immediately you can garner out the real emails and use that to create custom audiences. By the way, people visiting your website, you create custom audiences too. So what page they go to, if they went to your wedding page, then they can start seeing ads about weddings at your hotel, because they wanted to say they came through your wedding page. So here, all this data, your confirmation numbers here, you can retarget those when they arrive, see what folio they generated from, what more information you can garner from them if you need to convert them from where you're getting the booking data. So there's no useless data, there's just some that's more useful than others. This is going to go real fast. These are 4 statements that I love making because people don't tend to understand what they mean. Websites will be a thing of the past. Real quickly, websites as we know it are going to turn into portals because so much is known about you in your experience online that websites are basically static entities. We try to guess on navigation, what you need to use, and make you go through this arduous process of discovery. But we know so much about you now that we know that if you're already communicating with your friends, like on Google, if you use Gmail, how many people use Gmail? How many times, you get a little nervous when you go over and you're staying at a hotel and it pops up, hey, you want to check in? Or, because by the way, you can do that. You don't have to be Marriott to do that. You can actually do that with Google, that people can check into your hotel through Google. You just have to give them membership rewards relationship you have, or communication to your direct channel, which is a whole other conversation with that. But anyway, what's going to happen is if I'm going to think of that, I'm going to meet you in New York for business travel. All of a sudden I start seeing stuff about hotel rates in New York City. Well, if I go to a website that's not a website anymore, but a portal in New York City, all of a sudden there's pictures of business travel, there's business travel content about Wi-Fi and shuttles and everything else, and rates for package, business travel. And if I click on something other than that, the pictures, the content, the offers all change dynamically to reflect what may be my interest at that point. But it's not a website. It's really a portal that's tailored to your travel experience for the web access. Search box will go like, I'm going to go through, we don't have time to go through the videos. I was going to do a little Magneto walking on a bridge he made in front of him, but we'll skip that. Because I think Jenny has this way of shutting it off she hasn't told me yet. Okay. Make me scared. Bots, and bots, messenger bots, animation bots. Well, big news happened middle of last year that really kind of rolled out but didn't seem to make the public impact that will eventually, is Google, Alexa, everybody open up their bots. I can make apps with bots. Now before, if it was Alexa, only Amazon could make the app. If it was Google Assistant, only Google could make the app. Now I can use that same process, because we talk about voice activation and searches and so forth. Well, now I can start programming in bots. That's why you're going to see more and more messenger service dialogue, more AI and so forth, which we'll get to in just a moment. Yeah, there's a lot of Amazon Echo. Just as a scary story to this, when Amazon Echo started, or Amazon Alexa basically, 2.5 years ago, it had 16 functions to it. 20,000 is actually an older number. They've hit into the upper 30s now. I got to get the new stat for it. That's how fast it's grown in what it's used for. A lot of them are duplications and so forth, similarities and so forth, but still, staggering amount of things that it can do for you. Microsoft wants to be in 3 million, actually is in 3 million cars. Why? Because that's the next venue, just as much as the home is the next venue. Being in your car, all that data about where you are, what you do, what you're talking, what you're listening to, driving along, it says, hey, you love sushi, and there's the #1 sushi spot in this town, 1 block up. You said if we went by some place like that, let me know. There it is. All right, I know I'm rushing through some of the stuff because this is the view of the future world of hotels, which runs into a danger. I don't know whether you're familiar with the news feature that came out a few months ago. They subpoenaed the data from Alexa of a murder at a home. Now, we all try to look for the new shiny object, which isn't always the best strategy. So you drop an Alexa into a hotel room, like some hotels companies have, thinking they're being helpful with guest experience. It's a little Wild West. Because everything, unless you let the person know in that room, would you want to go to a hotel room and say, oh yeah, we have some cameras? Don't mind. Be like, yeah, no. That's what Alexa is, that's what Google is, that's what all they're really always listening. So when you say, okay Google, or hey Alexa, that it comes up. So that is a reality that has to come into the process of these kind of things where, what amazing thing would be walking to a hotel and going, lights on, TV on, the TV's to the channels you like, what's my day, and you're talking to it like you would at home, and you feel like you're rated on that. That's an optimum hospitality experience. But the issue is all that data, unless disclaimer, it isn't yours. And it can be used for all the evil things that I use it for. Okay, search box will go out. Again, fun video of Scotty trying to talk to a computer mouse. We'll skip to that. And Alec Baldwin, and this goes back to the Alexa conversation, Google Assistant.
You got time to play a couple of those.
Well, I want to get some, I think, okay.
You got a good one.
Interesting stat on Alexa is in its first year it sold 1.8 million units, and Google predicted it would grow 10% year on year. And last year, the third year of its existence, it sold 10.8 million.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Apple's approaching it differently, but we'll see what happens.
Google have actually launched the home thing because they are so fearful of Amazon Alexa.
Okay. This one, I'm just going to play real quick. It's in an excerpt. And go over to this screen. Play over here.
I did earlier.
Okay.
I'm going to run that. And then we are going to...
These are the people that built Siri.
Open the curtain.
Sold it to Apple.
Take a look.
And they went off and made a new one called Viv.
So,
Viv got bought by
fairly
Samsung.
straightforward here, but there's actually something pretty extraordinary going on.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that we do is we have our friends from Nuance who are using for our speech.
I'm going to speak over because I want to point to this. This is asking questions like, is next Thursday Thursday going to be warmer than the Thursday 2 weeks ago at the Golden Gate Bridge on Thursday?
But then here's where the magic comes in.
Siri and all them wouldn't touch it.
Gotta do.
We don't understand, whatever, so forth and so on.
Technology.
This understands and interprets what is
The
positive.
computer science breakthrough.
What it's doing is it's taking the semantics of what you said, much like most voice activation stuff is, but then it's writing its own program in 1.4 milliseconds. 0.14 milliseconds, sorry. And it's basically saying, from what you said, this is what I think you mean, but I need this information, so I need to create this, it needs to go into this correlation. And in that fraction of time, it writes its own program. A computer writing computer language. Now, we always hear the little news things that pop up that, you know, artificial intelligence got turned on and turned into being an ass or something like that because it got the personality or whatever. And it's true because the data that's fed to it creates the nuances to it that creates its own perception of things. But the idea is that AI will really control your marketing. And I say this from our conversation with MetaSearch, and we don't really have a great amount of time to dig into the MetaSearch so much, but if you're not working with the MetaSearch space, you need to. And it's not as daunting as it once was. It is intimidating if you don't understand the mechanics of it, but the necessity of it is there, which is basically saying if you're taking the best of the best, you want to make sure it's in front of people at the optimal amount of time. I have better examples that I want to point as to what exactly that means with the Facebook DAC program. Want to point out Google Trip? It seems like a nuance. Hey, this is good. I actually didn't want to wrap up on time. This is good. Okay, Google Trips. If you have not used it, it's great. It's like what you would think is just another app, but in actuality, it knows so much about you that its recommendations during travel are spooky. And the other nice part of it is it works within the ecosystem of not always having Wi-Fi. So you have the ability to keep the data with you, and so you're not as lost without a map or translator or where am I supposed to be or schedule and all that other kind of fun stuff. The part you have to remember as you give it, it's shared, that data is used to better find out your digital avatar as to whom you are for what they can do and communicate with you. I will say one thing about Google Hotel Finder. The scary aspect of Google Hotel Finder is Google in the commission model for Hotel Finder will always beat you at your own game because it always knows faster than you can plan for when best to have the ad show. So when you surrender into that commission relationship with them, it gets into a scary proposition that you really are kind of like taking your hands off the steering wheel and saying, Tesla drive me. And it better have the knowledge to know how to do well, and it actually is doing exceptionally well at it. This was a huge deal 2 years ago, now it's no deal. And that was cross-device tracking. As a matter of fact, big thing with Safari, having opened up an OS 11, is it shuts this off. Because it's so pervasive, actually, aka abused by marketing, because we could track you. It used to be that we'd always have to reset the ads. You went on your phone, you looked at an ad, then you went home and you went to your laptop. I didn't know it was the same you. So I'd show you the same ad again. Well now, with Google, I know you've already seen my ad on the mobile. So I can show you the next step, the progression of workflow on the iPad. Because I know you're at a different point in the engagement process than when you first looked at the phone. And then I can retranslate that if you happen to hop on an iPad or a tablet in this case, and share the continued story. Because now, where we used to say email was dead and so forth, it's because if you looked at it as a one-dimensional answer, I send an email or I don't, email was a frustrating point because you were just pissing people off. Sending them stuff they weren't interested in at a time they had no interest in it. But if you create workflows, if they get an email, do they open it, don't they open it? If they did, this is what they get. If they didn't and didn't click on this is what they get. You create these workflows of experience. You incubate the relationship and talk to them. You're driving them to a conversation they don't want to participate in. So, Facebook City, I gotta tell you, I didn't really appreciate this one until I went to Honolulu for a rocket there. Because this is that, I don't say it's a TripAdvisor killer, it's a TripAdvisor challenge. Because when I was in Honolulu, never had been there before, awesome place. I'm looking and I didn't realize how many of my friends had been there. They'd already been. So we shared, like, let me Waikiki. Yeah, it didn't have the same effect to them. They're like, get there. But I also enjoyed, they ate here. I'm looking at it going, oh, that's the restaurant right here. Oh, they got that. Wow. And I like, when I go out to dinner with this person, I like the choices we make together. So let me go try this. Way different experience than TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is by community. Hey, this is good, this is bad, whatever. We know we have to take the extremes with a grain of salt and all the other stuff. But this was people I knew tell me what they did. I was like, I didn't even know I was there. I don't see any of my guides. Let me go do the ukulele training. Everybody thought stuff. And that is a different experience that Facebook's offering as to tailoring the content that they show in their city guides as to what's available, aka marketing that we can do when people come to your market looking for the same experiences. This is the part I want to hang on to for a minute while I still got time. For those unfamiliar with Facebook DAT, Dynamic Ads for Travel, is this a new phrase for most everybody? Everybody kind of knowing about it a little bit? Kind of? Okay. It used to be, and tell me this didn't, you did it or just irritated you, room starting at $99. Click here. Click. There ain't a $99 room inside. On any date I pick, there's no 99. You just irritated me, I'm leaving unless I really needed the room, whatever. That's a static ad. So what you used to only be able to do, put in the static ad. Starting ad, inclusive of, check for details, check based on availability, blah, 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 okay? Not anymore. And I'm not going to get into the technology of it, other than it's available at any level, okay? Is all of this is based on your personal experience, based on qualifiers I put in an ad as a developer. I know whether you're a member or not. I know what rate you're interested or not, in a destination you're interested or not, in a brand you're interested or not, by rating you're interested or not. All of this, marketers now control. And when you click on that ad, there will be a $109 rate at that hotel already connected into your opportunity to add your membership. How much more effective is that kind of ad? Based on the opportunity of timing, that CMOT that we were talking about, that moment in time opportunity, compared to the let's just get it out there in front of people, even if you put it into a feeder market, even if you put it as a booking window, prime booking window, or pre-booking window, all those methodologies that we more traditionally use, now we have tools like this. And I know those are common, only 2 rooms left, and I do a live show for HSMAI every Friday, which you're all welcome to join. We have about, I don't know, a couple thousand people that join us every week, which is fun. It's video, we all have little talking heads. And we talk about, did Booking.com, do they use stress to create buying environments? No, they're using good marketing. We know it's a diminished inventory. We know people are buying behind us, especially if we're driven to purchase because of something that is business cycle or event driven. So we know we're kind of in front of or behind somebody in a line of purchasing something. Accuracy to left aside or not, the idea that this is placed in there is to remind you that there's not a dormancy about this. This may not be here the next time you look. So if you're thinking at this level to purchase, best to purchase now than to purchase later. So it's not a negative, it's actually a beneficial reminder of why you're taking the time to go look at an ad. Okay, now, the landscape is ever changing. This is from 2011 from Martech, showing all the companies in the ecosystem of digital marketing. That's 150 businesses. You'll see Google in there and everything else. But that's 2011. And I know we all can remember 2011. That's this year. Over 5,000 businesses in the same area. To the point you cannot, if you go to this, the link is in the presentation. You have to zoom in to see these businesses in these different categories of CRM and and so forth and so on. That's how much the density of it is. Okay. This is Lucy. I don't want to waste our time with it because I know we're coming real close.
Yep,
okay. So play this back. It's scary. It's basically artificial intelligence for marketing. Hey Lucy, I need to do business on March 2nd. Oh, then you need to put money here on this channel for these people in this location at this price. It will do that, and it's alive now. Remember Watson? IBM's Watson? Lucy's his sister. They built it for marketing. It's Watson, the only name Lucy, which probably has personal issues with it. Okay. Let's get all that. Give it in. VR. Oh, that's a little kid right there. I want to bring this to the last conclusion. This is the live one. If you're not familiar with, you guys know the Facebook Live? I know we did the live here, but do you know how to see it globally? Facebook.com/live. It's a map. You stop watching news. You can get more awareness of what's going on, whether it be Las Vegas, whether it be San Juan, anything. By just going to the map and rolling over, and when you roll over, it'll show you everybody that's watching it at the same time from around the world where they're watching it, and click on it and watch the presentation to it. Okay. These 2 links, I played one for you, which was this one, which was about WeChat. This one just to show you the enormity of what we're looking at, Facebook and its challenges about offering internet to the world, it's a thought-provoking one. Also from the New York Times, I thought it was an excellent one to do. We'll get a chance to watch it. That's the link, which I'll keep sharing later on for it. But before I get off of that, and before Jane kicks me out, I want to show you 3 tools to use. I'm going to talk to you guys about this. This is Promo Republic. If you need to build content, this platform, I'm not advocating it, it's just a tool that I'm currently using. You can pick your topic, your location, it keeps you up with all your trending, recommendations, articles, blah, blah, blah. You share it on whatever platforms, it gives you templates, it gives you the ability to go over and create calendar of events if you're looking for things that you want to dialogue about in your market for certain topics. It shows you all the stuff that's going on by day, by category. The other is, and this is where the tool share with the sponsorship, Sniply. You know how you share posts? This one allows you to create an overlay so that you can put it in your own call to action. Rather than you try to be the content authority in your market, Austin has amazing things going on, and you have leaders in that content that are talking about those things all the time. Share those posts like you already are doing, but do it through Sniply, and it puts a call to action. Want to stay in Austin and enjoy this? Click here. And it drives you to your website, which is pretty cool. And the last thing, they call it Zapier. Zapier is like IFTTT, which means if then that. You create conditional relationships with programs that aren't supposed to work together. So it says every time somebody sends me an email, I want it to go and put it into a Google Sheet, and then I want it to be shared on this page, I want to do this and that. And you literally create an automation to create this functionality. So if you don't have the time to do certain things, this actually can create the dots of things so that you don't have to do it for you. And with that,
I'm going to share 3 quick stories about Loren that.
I took it off.
Okay. That's all right.
All right, 3 quick stories about Loren. 1, we were holding our breath in the back because when he went to Google Live, what he did when he showed it to us about 6 months ago was there were 2 people having sex on it live. Yeah, and we thought, don't open that link, Loren, don't open that link. That's one story. Another story would be that we had a program that we used to do with HSMAI called the Certified Hospitality Business Acumen Program, a live program, 2 people assigned to a hotel to bring it into profitability over a 3-year cycle on a live simulation. And randomly, 2 people were picked to be in each computer sharing the screen and the decisions. And I was in that program, and I came in and I was partnered with Loren for 3 days. For 3 days. Can you imagine? So for 3 days, the first day Loren said, don't even touch the computer, I've got all the answers. So I didn't, and we were competitive against the other hotels in the room, which were other people, and we were like at the bottom, right, Loren?
Dead last.
Dead last. So the next day we came in and I said, let me try being at the computer today, and Loren said, okay. And I said, I'll make all the decisions. So I made all the decisions. Where were we the second day? Dead last again. So on the third day, we said, let's work together, Loren, and I'll make a decision, let's discuss it. You make a decision, we'll discuss it, and then we'll make a decision to what we put in the computer. And where did we end the day?
We beat everybody's ass.
Yeah, we were at #1. So my point is, collaboration is really important across departments, right? So it's really important to work with your sales professional, with your digital marketing, with your marketing and your revenue management professionals for success. Last story.
That's another story.
Last story is, Loren is brilliant at so many things, but if you need him, you can also call on him and he'll always respond. So if I need to know, Loren, I'm in Florida and the hurricane's coming at my house, what should I do? He will stop everything and he will say, do you have a power screwdriver? What do you have on your shutters? Let me tell you how to put them up. Let me tell you how fast to put them up. Don't do it yet. Wait till the next forecast. He's brilliant. Loren, if I need a security system on my house, and they'll say, Jenny, you need a security system on our house. He says, okay, let me just give you 5 things to do. And so it's like he has all this data. Call on him. He loves to share it.
And he doesn't sleep.
Yeah, you don't ever want to be with him for 3 days in a class where you're sharing the computer, but I will tell you, in his mind are all kinds of things of interest. So now we've got the rest of the afternoon, and we're going to go deep into total revenue management. And I'd like to ask Patrick Boyle from OTA Insights to come up and just reintroduce Bonnie Buckheister for this afternoon.
Well, without further ado, we'll bring Bonnie Buckheister back up to discuss total revenue management.
All right.
Yes.
Fantastic. You'll notice with Loren that he has a lot of information, and he's going through it very quickly. Every once in a while, at the back of the room, I'll go, to get him to slow down just a little bit. But I do encourage you to look at the tape of his webinar because he goes into more detail. And the key is, I mean, when you think about your relationship with marketing, well, my guess is that it's probably somewhat distant. In other words, a lot of the kinds of things that your marketers are doing or could be doing aren't as connected to you as directors of revenue. That would be my guess. And what happens if somebody comes to you and says, oh, we have this need period coming up in 3 weeks, and they look to the revenue managers, and what are you going to do about it? Well, what are you going to do about it? You open all your channels, you maybe get some more rates out, maybe you do some specials on an OTA, but